号就到中国了，然后呢，经过了很多城市，大概是有7个城市之多。How was the trip?
It's been really fun and exciting, and in each city I got to meet with people and interact with students in the universities and have a conversation with them, and I really enjoyed all the interactions very much. Yeah.
Did you get to visit the historical relics?
Not really, not on this trip.
Or taste the food there? No?
Food, yes, I love Chinese food. So everywhere that I went, I've only been eating Chinese food.
那米叔说，他因为在大概中国有7个城市转了一圈，那么他在很多大学里跟大学生聊天，觉得非常的有意思。那我问他说，你有没有时间去拜访那些名胜古迹？他说很遗憾，这次真的没有时间。但是他到每一个城市都会去尝尝当地的美食，他觉得非常的赞。等一下，我们如果有机会可以问问他啊，对于那个哪一款美食是最爱？那我们今天先跟米叔来聊一聊，因为其实大家知道，米叔之前有采访当中有说过他在读中国的这个武侠小说。我们先来看他的这个读完以后怎么样。So Amir, we learned from one of your past interviews that you were reading this Chinese martial art novel called The Deer and the Cauldron. How do you like it?
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I was, I think, I was in Hong Kong about 6 months ago, I think it was, and that's where I met a filmmaker who gave me the book to read, and I started reading it. It was 3 books actually, and the moment I started reading it, it just sucked me in, and I was just drawn into it, and it was a really entertaining book, and so much fun, and I loved the character, the lead character in that, who was a 14-year-old boy who was born in a brothel, is the son of a prostitute, and from there he reaches the palace of the emperor, becomes best friends with the emperor, and also with the rebels who are against the emperor, and it was a wonderful book, and I really enjoyed reading it. Yeah.
So that's The Deer and the Cauldron that you read. All 3 of them you finished.
All 3 of them, yeah. I couldn't put it down, just bang, bang, bang. I just read all 3.
那他其实刚才我们跟米叔聊了他的开幕顶记，因为我们在之前的采访里听他有提到过这个。他说大概是6个月以前在香港的时候，有一个朋友给了他那个英文版的鹿鼎记，很厚，大概分了3本，他就一下子就被一打开那个书就完全停不下来了，说这个故事太有意思了，一个10几岁的男孩somehow 跟这个国王那个皇上成了好朋友，然后当然还有叛军啊等等故事，爱恨情仇。他说他就很快的就已经把这个完全都读完了。Maybe one day there will be you can produce maybe an Indian movie version of a similar story.
Yeah, why not? It's a great story.
是吧？我说以后没准他那个米叔因为现在也是电影制作人嘛，说不定将来能做一个印度版的哈，跟这个韦小宝的故事接近的这个，我们会期待将来有这么一天哈。We really very much look forward to that day. So speaking about making movies, you are now playing different roles. Not just an actor, you're also a director, a producer. How do you find yourself balanced out these roles if you are playing, let's say, more than one role in one project?
Well, actually, my viewpoint on a film doesn't change irrespective of whether I'm an actor in the film or a producer or a director. For me, every time it's the film that's most important and above all of us, and that's what I concentrate on. So I don't typically have the viewpoint of an actor. I have a more holistic viewpoint, I would like to believe, of the process of filmmaking. Yeah. So it doesn't matter which capacity I'm working on a film. My way of looking at the film is the same, and my passion for it or my involvement in it is identical.
我刚才问米叔呢，是因为他现在有不同的身份，他有导演，他也做演员，也做制作人。我说你是怎么样把这3个角色来平衡出来？比如说你在一个电影项目里面，你扮演2个不同的角色，那你是怎么样来平衡好这个角色？他说，其实他个人觉得没有很大的差别，没有什么冲突。他觉得无论他扮演的是什么样的角色，他对于这个电影的投入，对于电影的这个认真的程度是永远都不会变的。那么相对来说，他觉得作为制作人来说，这个从制作人的角度来思考电影是一个最好的一个角度，因为它会关系到整个这个电影的这个进程、发展和设计。相对来说，演员的角度可能只是从一个方面，制作人是更加全面的一个角度。Do these roles conflict at some point?
Not so far.
No.
No. essentially, I'm a creative person at heart. So even when I'm producing a film, I'm not a typical producer. I'm not a producer who's trying to, make the film as economically as possible. That doesn't happen with me. I'm trying to make the film as what's best for the film. And usually my films which I produce, all of them go over budget. They never hit on schedule because I think the creative team wants to go beyond that, and I always support the creative team in that.
我说有没有什么时候这些角色之间会有冲突呢？他说目前为止没有。他说作为一个制片人来说，他从来都不会以成功的商业化运营为首要的目的。他说，当然你作为一个制片人，你要考虑很多因素，考虑到电影的预算、电影的这个可行性等等等。但是对于他来说，目前为止他觉得这些角色没有什么冲突，他非常享受扮演任何一个角色的过程。Anything you want to add up on that point? No?
Well, this whole world of cinema and filmmaking is so engaging, and so it sucks you in. Yeah, and I feel I'm so fortunate that I'm working in a field that I love so much. I feel very blessed and grateful for that. That I'm working in something that is my passion and my love, and something. So for me, it's never work. It's always it's like fun and games.
他觉得对他来说，能够在电影行业工作，就是这个电影乐队的魅力对他来说是最大的。所以不管他扮演什么样的角色，他觉得自己很幸运，能够在这个行业一直工作下去。他觉得就像是在玩一个游戏一样，而且是可能是很长时间都不会再结束的一个游戏，就是他的一个精彩的人生的一个刻画。So if somebody wants to approach you with a project, you would be looking at, as you said once in an interview, the script, the director, the producer. Yeah. How do you prioritize these three?
Well, certainly it's the first thing I look at is the script, and that is of prime importance to me. It should be something that connects with me, attracts me, engages me in some way. So if the script excites me, then I want to see if the director is someone who I can trust and have complete faith in, because ultimately it's a director who's going to tell the story. And if I have complete faith and trust in the director, then I check if the producer is someone who can create the right environment and give us the resources that we need to make the film properly. And once the film is ready, the producer needs to give it a good release so that all the work that we've put in doesn't go waste and it gets a good platform as a release. So these are the three things I look at in that order: script, director, and producer.
我刚才问米叔的说是如果说有一个电影来找你，想让你出演，那你会看什么？因为米叔曾经在一个访谈里说过，他会看3点，一个是剧本，一个是导演，一个是制片人或者说制作。那我就问他说你是怎么样排序这3个东西的？他说他首先会看的是剧本，这必须得是一个很好的故事，必须那个故事能够让他觉得完全被吸引到，想要迫不及待去扮演其中的角色，这是最重要的一点。那么如果故事他感兴趣了以后，他会去看导演，他要确保他相信这个导演，我们之间有足够的信任，我可以把我自己交到你手里，跟你一起来创作这样的一个故事。那么再之后，他会去看他的制作人或者说这个制作团队。当然了，你拍摄一个电影，你需要有足够多的各种各样的资源，保证你能够完成拍摄。你辛辛苦苦做出来了一个片子以后，一定要有好的平台来发售，后期的效果也能够达到最好。所以说，他基本的顺序会是先看剧本、导演，然后是制作。Are there any stories you can share with us in terms of your, trying to find a director that is really trustworthy? I mean, is there any time that you would talk to a director and then you feel like maybe?
So if it's a director whose work I've already seen and I'm familiar with, then it's that much easier for me to decide whether I trust the director. If it's a new director, first-time director, then it takes me a little longer to have that trust and faith in him. So I spend a lot of time with the director to interact with the director and just to understand, what his or her thoughts are about various aspects of filmmaking. And in spending time with the director, I can figure out whether I have the comfort to trust him or her. Yeah.
You will make judgment by then.
Yes.
OK. 我刚刚问米叔说你跟导演之间的信任是怎么建认的？那他说，如果是他认识的、已经知道的导演，看过他的作品呢，当然他确保我可以相信这个导演，这没有问题。如果是没有合作过的导演，他真的会花很多的时间去跟他在一起，去探讨也好，或者去闲聊天也好，他要确保我们之间有足够多的了解，才能决定。
There's one very important thing I look for in a director. What I'm really looking for in a director is the desire to tell a story. How hungry is the director to tell that story? And that is the one thing that I'm also looking for, because I feel that if you're really keen to tell a story, then you tell it well. I'll give you an example. So let's say, we're sitting at a party and there are 15-20 people around, and I ask you, tell us something interesting from your life. And you will think of something, and then you will tell us that, oh yeah, once this happened or something. There is a certain energy with which you tell the story. Now imagine the same party going on, and the doorbell rings and you walk in. And something has just happened in your life, and you say, guys, guess what happened to me? Just listen to what happened to me. Shut the music off, listen to me. You will grab everyone's attention, and there will be a certain excitement with which you want to tell them something. You're dying to tell a story. So I think that's the one quality I'm looking for in the director. Is he dying to tell the story? Is she dying to tell the story? Is it bursting out of that person? Because when you are very excited to tell a story, you usually tell it well. And that energy gets, transported to the audience. So that's one quality I'm looking for in a director.
米叔刚才特别说，跟导演合作的时候，他会特别关注一件事情，就是这个导演对于讲故事的那种愿望和欲望是否强烈。他举了一个例子，他比如说我们在开一个几十个人的派对上面，有一个人说，哎，你跟我说说你人生当中的一个故事吧。那个人就站起来正常讲了一个故事。他说，那相比之下，如果同样的场景在一个派对上，有一个哥们儿进来了，说：“你们知道今天发生了什么吗？快把音乐给我关了，谁都别说话，听我说。”巴拉巴拉把这故事讲了。那就是他要找的那种激情。他说，一个导演一定要有非常强烈的激情，要把一个好故事说给别人听。这个对米叔来说非常非常的重要。So you've been a director, an actor, and a producer. Which job is the hardest?
I think directing.
Director.
Yes. It's a much bigger responsibility. And I think that is probably between the three the hardest job. Yeah.
我问他说这三个角色当中哪个最难？他说是导演，因为导演就是讲故事是个非常非常难的这样的一个过程。But you love directing.
Yes, I do. And the one film that I directed, I really had a great experience. Directing has got, you're responsible for the script, you're responsible for the prep, the costumes, the production design, how the film looks. You're responsible for how the actors perform. You're responsible for how the film is edited and cut. You're responsible for the sound design. You're responsible for the entire package as a whole. So directing is a much more bigger responsibility and a tougher one.
他说导演更难，除了刚才说的导演为什么更难？导演这个工作真的是从头到尾都要负责，从一开始选一个好的剧本，选一个好的卡司，到最后整个从细节、服装、道具、灯光、美学、后期剪辑，甚至到事后发行的时候，导演就整个这个环节他都要负责任。所以对他来说，导演这个工作是非常难非常全面的一个工作。You still will be doing that?
Yes, I look forward to directing my next film. I don't know when that will be because right now I'm concentrating on my work as an actor, and I feel that directing is something that will just suck me in. So once I start directing, I'll probably stop acting. So right now I feel that there's a lot I want to do as an actor, and so I'm trying to delay when I do my next film.
Okay, but when will that happen? You don't know.
I don't know. I haven't thought about it. I don't know.
他说：“米叔还是非常喜爱导演的这个工作，他甚至觉得有可能有一天，如果他真的爱上了导演这个工作，他可能就不当演员了。 但是我说这个什么时候会发生，他现在还不知道，但他现在可能已经开始构思或者开始着手他接下来的这个项目了。在这个项目当中，他还是会以导演的身份出现。Okay, so we learned that once in an interview you said, actually this is a quote that we put up on this board here. Okay, it's right there. It's 逆着海浪游泳. It means swimming against the tide.
Yeah.
This is a quote from you, right?
Right?
Why did you say that? Is that what you would use to describe your own experience in this film world?
Well, I said this in reference to my career when I joined the film industry in India about 30 years ago. At that time, what was considered mainstream cinema or popular cinema had a very narrow definition. And anything outside of that was frowned upon by the market, by the trade, by the producers. And I came into this industry with my own taste and with my own ideas, and everything that I picked to do was, as it turned out, something that the market did not have much faith in. And so for me to do those films was a struggle, because I had to constantly prove myself again and again with each film. And the market didn't really trust my judgment, I think, for the first, I'd say, a good 12 years of my career. 12 years. It was 12 years, yeah. I was constantly swimming against the tide and picking films that I loved, which were not mainstream, were not conventional mainstream films. But it's only when they would release and then people would like those films and they would do well that they would be grudgingly accepted as successful films by the market. So for the first 12 years of my career, from 1988 right up to 2001, it was I was constantly swimming against tide, and I had to keep proving myself again and again. And then in 2001, my film Lagan released in India, and that was perhaps one of the films that was breaking almost all the rules of mainstream cinema. And it was a very unusual film for mainstream cinema at that time.
What was the name?
It was called Lagan. And that released in 2001. And when that film released, the market then began to trust. They still didn't understand me, but they figured that maybe he knows what he's doing. And so they began trusting me much more after that. So for the longest time I was swimming against the tide, going with my own gut, going with my own, what I loved, and doing films that I believed in, you know. So I always felt I'm constantly having to prove myself, I'm having to, trying to convince theatre owners, to distributors to have faith in the film. So it was a constant uphill battle for me because of my unusual taste.
I'm going to translate this part for now. Okay. 刚才呢，其实是跟米叔说，因为他之前也是说到了我们这个活动的主题啊，逆着海浪游泳。我就说这是你以前在访谈中自己说过的一句话，是你自己动态。差不多有12年的时间，从大概1988年开始有12年的时间，他觉得他自己就是在逆着浪潮游泳，因为当时印度市场的主流的电影的定义还是他认为相对狭隘的，而他想追求一些新的东西。所以他花了很多的时间，想要去努力的让更多的人相信他，让那些制作人来接纳他，或者让市场相信啊，我的想法是对的，花了很大的力气，但是通常一次又一次的都失败，都被别人拒绝。那么直到01年的时候，他的作品在印度市场上大获全胜，或者票房很赞的时候呢，人们开始转变了对他的想法。他认为其实那个时候人们只是开始相信他，但还不见得能。其实那个时候人们只是开始，但对他来说，之前的那12年的这个电影行业的这个奋 swimming with the tide now.
Well, you know, somehow it always feels like I'm swimming against the tide. Because, for example, when I did Dangal, I had to put on weight and become really fat and look much older and look like an old man, father of 4 daughters. And when I took that on, a lot of people close to me said, "Why are you doing this? You're looking so fat. You're looking so ugly. All your fans will run away. They won't like you anymore when they see you like this. Why will people want to see a film about an old man and his 4 daughters? There's no romance in the film. Where is the heroine? Where are the love scenes? So when I made the film, I just made it because I loved the story. But I didn't know finally how people are going to react. People hadn't seen me. The film I did before that was PK, in which I was looking a certain way. I was 9% body fat. I was looking very fit. And then the next film was Dangal. So again, for me, I love the story, so I did it. But I didn't know how it's going to do. I don't know whether people will accept me in that role, whether people will like the story. And so it always feels like I'm swimming against the tide even now. For example, when I did PK is a film which is discussing religion, and India is a country which is very emotional about religion and very sensitive about it. It's a very sensitive topic in India. So again, we were wondering that, will people hate us because we're talking about religion? Will people not like what we are saying and reject the film completely? And I don't know. It's a story that I like. It's a character that I like, but I don't know whether people are going to like it or are they going to throw stones at my house. I have no idea. So the market believes, I think, in me a lot more now. But I'm not so sure. Every time I do a film, it's big risk for some reason or the other. I think I'm doomed to do films which I don't know what will happen. Yeah, I think my taste is always challenging, even to myself.
I'm going to translate this part. 我刚才问米叔说，你逆着海浪游泳了12年，得到了市场的认可、行业的认可，你觉得你现在是顺着浪在游泳了吗？然后他说，这个不好说。说那个，其实对于他来说，可能挑战是永远都存在的，尤其是他永远想去拍一些新的一些题材，比如说拍《摔跤吧，爸爸》的时候，他要把自己变得那么胖、那么老，他的那个团队可能会有质疑说，你变那么胖、那么老，你的粉丝都跑啦。你这个是非常那个危险的一个项目，而且这个剧里面没有爱情故事，没有美女，没有帅哥，怎么办？这个市场前景怎么办？但他还是去做了。但是在这个电影获得成功之前，他决定做的时候，他并不知道结果会怎么样。包括他拍了一些电影，比如说跟宗教题材有关的，他也很紧张，因为印度是一个宗教大国，他很担心说万一我这个题材让有一些人不高兴，会不会有人跑到我家门口来往我的窗户上扔个臭鸡蛋什么的？说你不知道，永远不知道发生什么。所以对于他来说，逆着浪还是顺着浪，他自己可能觉得自己永远都是在处于一个要挑战未知的这样的一个状态。So you'll be constantly challenging yourself.
Yeah.
This is what cinema means to you.
Well, no, I could get attracted to a story which was simpler. But, so cinema to me means just losing yourself in stories, and experiencing stories and characters. That's what it means to me. Cinema is the youngest art form. It includes all the various art forms and uses them as tools. Story writing, you have poetry, you have music, you have singing, you have performing, acting, you have fine arts, you have art direction, you have production design, visuals. Now you even have visual effects. So there are so many art forms which all come together to tell a story, and that is cinema. But at the end of the day, it is still storytelling. So it's like thousands of years ago, our ancestors, we can imagine them sitting around a campfire and one of them telling the others something exciting that happened that day, maybe how he hunted with a lion or a deer or whatever, and that story. So when he's telling the story to his friends, he's got his voice, his words, and his hands as tools to tell the story. Filmmakers are doing exactly that. They're telling a story, but we just have many more tools to use. We have lighting, we have camera work, we have editing, we have so many more tools to tell a story. But fundamentally, that's what we're doing. We're just telling a story, and that's what cinema means to me.
我刚刚问米叔，因为他之前说要不断的挑战自己，我说对于你来说做电影就是要不断挑战自己嘛？他说其实不是哎，他说我觉得挑战自己好辛苦啊，我特别希望有的时候我能够轻轻松松的就把工作给做了。但是电影对他来说意味着什么呢？他觉得对他来说意味着在故事里去忘情的迷失自己。这是他的原话，他就说，对于他来说，讲故事是最重要的一个事情，因为电影是一个其实是最年轻的一种艺术形式，相对于其他音乐、戏剧等等也好，所以电影会综合很多的东西，有表演的艺术，有音乐，有写作啊、剧本写作的艺术等等等等，现在还有后期制作、视觉艺术，所以说对于他来说，电影是综合了那么多种讲故事的工具和手法，综合在一起的一个讲故事的方法，可能是我们的祖先讲故事的时候就一张嘴和两个手比划，而现在我们只是换了用那么多不同的方法和工具来讲这个故事而已。所以电影对他来说就是讲故事。So you were talking about how the mainstream films in India back then, 30 years ago, obviously is different from what they are now today. Are Indian films different now today?
Yes,
How different?
Oh, well, very different actually. When I entered the film industry in India, as I was saying earlier, there was what was mainstream and popular cinema had a very narrow definition. Today, I think that has changed dramatically. I think audiences have matured, I think filmmakers have matured, and I think that people want to see different, unusual stuff. So what at one time was a completely offbeat, art house cinema, independent film, a lot of those stories and subjects and concepts now have been accepted on a larger scale in the mainstream. And so the mainstream has actually, the definition of mainstream has really undergone a huge change in these 30 years. Yeah.
因为米叔之前说过，30年以前他为什么会逆着海浪游泳，就是因为当时的那个印度电影的主流的这个对于主流的定义和今天是大大不相同了。那么它不同的主要在哪里呢？他说整个其实改变非常非常的大，整个市场也成熟了，整个观众群、受众群也成熟了。现在的观众，现在的主流观众他们希望看到不同的故事，或者说不寻常的故事，而不是像之前那么狭隘的。所以这样的话，对于愿意挑战自己的电影来说，其实是会有更大的空间。And the audience are younger. It's getting younger as well.
No, I wouldn't say that. I think typically the theatre-going audience of any era is usually from the age of 16 to 21, the younger generation. But then so I wouldn't say it's getting younger, it's just the generations are shifting. As people get older, as they get more busy in their lives, in their professions, and in looking after families, they have less time to watch films. So usually in any society all across the world, the largest section of the audience is usually teenagers, from the age of, I guess, 13 or 14 to 21, is considered the larger section of society which watches films in cinemas. Yeah.
And they are the ones that are now actually looking for different stories and accepting different topics.
Yeah, but I'm saying, when I entered the film industry, the people watching films were still that young.
Yeah.
Of that era.
But they've grown.
They have grown, and now there are newer audiences coming in. So yes, there are different audiences coming in. So the audience at any given point, like in today's, in 2018, you will find the bulk of theatre-going audiences is between that age group. Yeah.
说了一下，我其实本来想问他说是不是印度的那个观众跟我们这个中国的观众一样，就是越来越多年轻人啊会去看电影。他说其实对于他的这个调查或者对于全球的电影行业认知来说，任何一个市场。主流的这个电影观众人群的年纪其实是非常年轻的，可能10几岁到20出头的这样一个年纪。所以对于他来说，他刚刚开始做电影时候的那一代观众，现在已经成长了，年纪大了。那当然还有年轻的观众不同的填进来。所以说，观众对于这个电影里可以传递的故事和话题的接受程度，已经变得越来越大的。So, you have really done a lot in carrying Indian films to the world, to different markets. You think what is the reason that they are now being accepted by more audience? Is that because they didn't really see many of the Indian films now, or is it that the Indian films have evolved and now that caters for more audience globally?
Well, to be quite honest, I'm I've not done really. I've not done much to take my films to a world audience.
Into China?
No, I haven't. No. I've not done that to China also. I think it is the Chinese audience which has discovered me.
Yes.
So I didn't come here with Three Idiots or any of these films. Instead, what happened is that when Three Idiots released in India, after some months, somebody told me that your film is a big success in China. And I said, wait, it's not even released in China.
It was a surprise to you.
It was. I said, it's not released in China. They said, yeah, it's not released, but it's on the internet and people are watching it perhaps on pirated websites. And it's gone viral and people are sending it to each other and they're watching it on their laptops and their phones and all the kids in China are watching it and they're showing it to their parents. So I said, wow, I was really surprised to hear that. And I was really happy to hear that as well because, I had never expected that audiences in China would love the film so much. And I was very pleased to know that a film that I had been a part of had managed to touch the hearts of, the youth in China. So I was really happy to know that. And then I came to China for the first time when my film PK was about to release.
Which year was it?
My God, I'm really bad with dates. So Three Idiots was, PK was, I think 2004. 2000.
Yeah, someone says 20.
Yeah, but I came in 2014, I think, for the first time. I remember that I had started to prepare, it was probably 2015 then. I can't remember. I think it was 2000. Well, I remember I was fat because I started to put on weight. Hello, you were there? So I started to put on weight for Dangal and I had become fat. And that's when I came to China for the first time. And I think the people of China must have been surprised because they were like, he looks different. But they didn't know I was actually putting on weight for the film that I was about to start work on. But I remember, even in that first trip of mine, PK was the film that I had come to promote. And PK had released a good, almost 1 year after it released in India. So when I went to one TV station to promote the film, I was part of a talk show program. And there was a live audience exactly like all of you. And I asked the host to ask them a question, that how many of them have seen PK? And he asked them in Chinese, how many of you have seen PK? And everyone said, yes, we've seen it. The whole audience raised their hands. So I said, I don't know whether to be happy or sad. I'm happy that you have all seen it. I'm sad that you've seen it before the release of the film in China. So I don't know who's going to go to the theatre because everyone has already seen the film. So if you know what I'm trying to say, that my films actually, it was a Chinese audience who discovered me. And they kind of ran with me and they went online and started looking for my other films and my earlier films and they started watching all my other films, many of which have still not released in China in the theatres. So I cannot take the credit for bringing my films to China. I can't take that credit. That credit actually goes to the people of China for having discovered me and my films. And so when you ask me that, I've taken Indian cinema to the world, I haven't. I've just made films that I believed in. And I thought I was making them for an Indian audience. But as it turns out, the Chinese audience loves it and a lot of people across the world have connected with the film. But I have not done anything actively to take it to different countries. I have not. So that's the honest truth. So these films have traveled on their own. I think it's the strength of the film perhaps that has connected with people.
It's the internet.
It's the internet, yeah. I absolutely agree with you. It's the internet as well. I think, but I've always believed that, films have a life of their own. When you make a film, the director is like the mother of the film. The producer is like the father of the film. And all the people connected to the film, the actors, and the DOP, and the sound designer, and the musician, they're all like uncles and aunts of that little child which is about to be born. And when the film releases, it has a life of its own. And it takes a path and a course which you cannot control. And it connects with people from different parts of the world. And you really have no control over that. So I think that's the charm of cinema, I guess. So when you say that I have taken Indian cinema to the world, I haven't. I've just made films that I believed in, and I thought I was making them for an Indian audience. But they've traveled on their own. And I'm happy they have. I'm really thrilled they have, because it feels so good as a creative person to know that I've actually reached out to and touched so many hearts.
And they brought you to China.
They brought me to China. Yeah, I'm here because the people of China discovered me, and that's why I'm here, really.
Yeah, let me translate this part first. 我刚才一开始跟米叔说，我说啊，你是因为手卡上写的米叔为了印度电影走上世界做出了贡献。米叔说：“其实我没有做什么贡献。”我说：“那你的电影带到中国来？”他说：“我没有把电影带到中国来。事实上是他的电影，那个在印度发行了之后的1个月之后，有人跟他说你的电影在网上被很多中国观众看了，非常非常喜欢，对他来说是一个意外的惊喜。”他没有想到会有这样的事情发生，所以呢，在15年的时候，他就第一次来到了中国。当时他正好在为了这个拍《摔跤吧，爸爸》在增肥，然后很多中国观众还说：“哎，你跟那个电影里不一样啊，长得。”所以呢，也是慢慢的电影就是带着他到了中国，所以他一直认为说，事实上他并没有把这个电影带到世界，也并没有把电影带到中国，而是中国的观众通过互联网，感谢高科技，感谢互联网，中国的观众发现了他的电影，他的电影把他带到了中国，而且他有一个理论，他认为电影本身是有生命的，可能导演就像是妈妈，制片人就像是爸爸啊，每一个人可能都是这个孩子的一个亲戚的大家庭的一个成员，然后他们这些人所有人在一起产出了这样的一个电影，这个电影有他自己的生命力，自己成长，自己去旅行，自己跟世界上不同的人去发生联系，发生情感的共鸣和碰撞，所以事实是电影把他带到了不同的国家来。
And not just my films. There's a television show that I did called Truth Always Prevails. It's in India we call it Satyamev Jayate. Truth alone prevails is the translation roughly. And that is a TV show, like a talk show I did about social issues that we face in India. And I believe that has become very popular on the internet in China, and a lot of people in China have been watching that show. So it's not just my movies. Even the TV shows have been traveling.
You're hosting that show.
I'm hosting that show.
And you sort of like you have guests and.
Yes, I have guests and I have a live audience. Yeah.
It's not standing comedian. It's just talking about.
No, it's actually very serious issues. Yeah. So we have done shows on female feticide, child sexual abuse, alcoholism, domestic violence. A lot of issues that we face as a society. Public health.
那米叔刚才说，其实不光是电影把他带到中国，其实他相信还有电视节目。他特别说，他在印度其实是一直做着一个就是访谈，不是就是 talk show， 是那个谈我们现在是脱口秀，对脱口秀这样的节目，讲的是严肃的是一些关于社会话题的。据他所知，在互联网上其实还有很多的中国的观众也看到了这个节目，所以不仅仅是电影，也是电视带过来。那么还有一点，刚才是因为米叔讲了一大段，我漏分了一点的，刚才关于电影的那个内容很有意思啊。就他说他第一次来到中国的时候，也是有这样一个屋子，粉丝们都坐在那里。他让主持人问大家说：“你们看过我一个什么什么电影吗？”所有人都说看过。然后米叔说：“我很高兴你们都看过，但是电影还没有在中国上映呢。你们都看了，等上映以后谁还去看啊？”所以这也是非常有意思的一个事情。因为年轻人就是可能很难等待，真正喜爱他、喜欢他的电影，就会迫不及待的想去看。So maybe you were thinking about. Internationalize your TV show as well? Sort of put on Chinese subtitles, put it on the internet?
No, you see, I didn't do it. I made the show, we put it on YouTube, which I don't think is seen in China.
And people just discover it.
And then last year, somebody wrote to me, I think one of my fans, and said that I would like to translate your show into Chinese. And I said, please go ahead. There's no copyright. She was asking for permission. I said, you have all the permission. There's no copyright on the show. I've just made it for people to watch. And so I believe that she or he translated it into Chinese, and it's got Chinese subtitles now. So that's how it happened. It happened very organically. I don't know on what platform it shows. I have no idea. Maybe you all can tell me.
是哪个平台 ？B 站啊，就是这个 Yeah, it's called. 因为叫什么哔哩哔哩啊，哔哩哔哩 ，That's the platform. Yeah. 所以是要看米叔的那个节目啊，上 B 站去找啊，这个节目非常的有意思。So we were talking about Indian films. Probably it is because the audience is now interested in India.
It could be, yes. It could
because
be.
your movies tell a lot of social issues in what is happening in that country.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess, I don't know, why don't we ask them, why have you started watching Indian films? Maybe one of you can answer. Yeah. You want a mic?
有工作人员给他一个话筒吧，米叔想跟这个互动一下，看说喜欢看他的电影，是不是因为对印度的这个社会比较感兴趣，印度社会的现象啊？Hello, Amia.
Hi.
I'm your big fan.
Thank you.
First, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, yeah.
Actually, for myself, I didn't have any interest in India. To be honest, before today? No. Before I know Amir. Okay. It was my high school teacher. He teach biology, and he showed the 3 Idiots in our class. That's the film our Chinese audience find you. Yeah, and so from that film, I have had know that it is how to say impact.
Yeah, impact.
Impact to our 2 countries. Yes, about the depressed learning life. And I have to. I want a colorful high school, but I only have to study in that. But you major in that film, and you use Rachel to tell us to
enjoy life.
Yes, enjoy life. So that's why I love you. And then I found that you are not. You didn't only supply one film to us. You have been concerned about so many social issues. So then we have PK. We have the.
But where did you see all these films, PK and all that?
你是在哪个渠道看到的这些
On the internet?
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't pay the ticket. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's fine.
But I buy 2 tickets for Dango.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I have watched it twice.
Yeah.
谢谢你。Okay, that's the truth. 非常感谢。Okay, great. This is very interesting. So, since we're already going to the audience, why don't we take more questions from them? And we're going to move to part 2, which I'm going to tell the audience is that we have collected questions from members of Zhihu, which is a knowledge sharing site here in China. And many of them have raised questions. We picked some, and they are actually here. So I'm going to call their names. They will raise their hands and going to raise questions to you themselves. 好吧，接下来我们马上进入第2趴。既然大家已经按捺不住要跟米叔交流了，马上啊，我们现在是这样，我们之前说过了，就是一些知友提前就是在网上说的一些提出的问题，我来按照名字喊到的那一位知友，您就举手，好吧？先第一位是大圣。Okay. His name is Monkey King.
Monkey King.
Yes. Let's see what question he's going to throw you.
感谢主持人，也感谢知乎给我这个宝贵的机会啊！我英语没有刚才那个美女好，我用中文提问。
没问题。
那个米叔您好，非常感谢您刚才非常精彩的分享，让我们大家体会了您那个电影人生。我本人也非常喜欢您的电影，然后从未知死亡到三傻大闹宝莱坞，再到今年比较大热的世界爸爸和那个神秘巨星，这些比较反映印度现实问题的这些电影，都让我们产生了很大的共鸣。那么我就有一个问题想要向您请教，就是近年来在中国影视圈出现了小鲜肉的现象，我想请教您，就是在印度的影视圈是否也存在这种小鲜肉的现象呢？谢谢您。
So he's going to ask you about what we call in China the little fresh meat phenomenon. Let me explain to you. The little flesh meat is, you know that is internet buzzword.
So the good-looking actors and actresses.
Young and fresh faces, celebrities. Is there a little fresh meat in India, and what do you think of that? You see, we didn't prepare the questions. They're really from
yes.
them.
Well, I guess all over the world you have. I would call them fresh meat, but all over the world you have, young people who enter the entertainment business, and a lot of times they are successful because of their looks and their beauty or their charm.
Were you once one of them?
Was I one?
Once? Were you once a little fresh meat?
I hope not. But I guess there's nothing wrong with it either. I think it's if as a young person you use whatever you can to break into the film industry, and if your looks is something to your advantage and you use that to get an entry into the entertainment business, that's fair enough, I guess. And I guess they also are popular because of that. People love these young actors and actresses, I suppose. So fair enough, yeah. And I'm sure, so in every society you have that. In India also we have young, good-looking people coming into the business. Yeah.
他说，其实，在每一个国家的市场，包括印度在内，其实都有差不多的现象。他觉得没有什么，其实很公平的一件事情。如果你想要进到娱乐圈，想要进到电影业，你有什么你就尽量的利用它。你有美丽的青春的容颜和肉体，你也可以利用它。这个他觉得没有什么，很正常。每一个国家也都有这样的现象。Okay, let's go to the next one. 后面那位是牧师 ，the priest.
The priest.
Yeah, his name is the priest.
Oh,
okay, let's see.
Right.
Is that going to be a religious question? I don't know. 哎，工作人员给您递个话筒，好，来。
那个主持人好，秘书好。那个，因为我是一直从事印度签证这个行业，所以是从内有人跟我说你干了这么多年的印度签证，难道你不知道阿米尔汗吗？我是从那。
So in his job, he helps people to get visa to India. So one day, a friend asked him, "You know India so well. How come you don't know Amir Khan?" So from that day, he got to know you.
所以我看完电影之后啊，我就一直有一个问题想问一下你，就是您之后有没有跟中国合作或者说合拍电影的计划呢？如果您有的话，您最想跟中国合作是拍什么题材的电影，或者说更想跟哪个导演合作呢？
Do you have any plans to work with China's filmmakers, or which directors are you looking at, or what kind of stories are you looking for?
Well, no specific plans at this point of time, but certainly I have a strong desire to do that. And I feel that there's a lot of amazing talent here in China, which I would like to collaborate with. Not just actors and actresses, but filmmakers, DOPs, production designers, musicians. There's a lot of amazing talent here, and I would love to collaborate with talent from China and learn. Yeah.
他说，目前为止还没有什么很具体的计划，但是他是一直有这样一个愿望。他说，除了导演、演员以外，中国有很多很棒的艺术家，包括什么作曲家啊，那个剧作家啊之类的。他是希望将来有一天真的能够实现这样一个愿望，而且他觉得在中国跟他们合作，自己也能学习到很多新的东西。
好的，谢谢
，Thank you。谢谢 He looks forward to your future cooperation with the Chinese filmmaker. 好，我们 let's go to the next one. 接下来这位叫青少 the young. Well, his name is.
The youth. Hi. I know that you have like a strong sense of social responsibility. So every story that you tell actually is like a slice of Indian society. But so far, do you see any changes to these social problems or any societal changes in India?
Well, I think that in all the films that I've done, which have had some social issues translated into, like Stars on Earth, it was a film about a little boy of 8 years old who's suffering from a learning disability called dyslexia. And that film came out, I think it was in 2008, I think 10 years ago, if I remember correctly. But anyway, so that film, when it came out, people in India had very little understanding and knowledge about what a learning disability was. And that film dramatically changed the way that parents looked at children, and also the way that teachers looked at teaching. And a lot of times it changed the way children felt about themselves. So that film had a huge impact on Indian society. Also, Three Idiots had a huge impact, and so did PK, and so did Dangal, and so did Secret Superstar, and Rang De Basanti. All of these films had a huge. These are all films which were talking about different social issues, and I've noticed that it's had a huge impact on audiences. And also my TV show, which I had done, again, that also had a lot of very strong impact on ground. So yes, I do feel that it's had a very strong positive impact.
其实刚才这位问的问题是说，你的电影又反映很多印度的社会问题，你有没有觉得你的电影给这些印度的社会带来一些什么样的变化？然后米叔就很自豪的说，其实他觉得还是有一些积极的影响的。比如说那个《地球上的星星》那个电影，讲一个有学习障碍学习能力障碍的这样的一个男孩的故事。那个电影08年发行了之后，说印度有很大的一个人群，有很多教育界的人，很多去关怀这样一个特殊群体的孩子，包括他之后拍的像《神秘巨星》啊。像《摔跤吧，爸爸》这样的一些题材，他认为很高兴的是，他的电影真的是引起到社会上对于一些问题的这样的一些关注，产生了正面的影响。Okay, now the next one goes to 接下来这位挚友是张优晨，好。
米叔您好，我的问题是关于电影行业的，就是宝莱坞，我们都知道，就是宝莱坞其实是发展的很好的这么一个就是电影制作的地方，然后它在亚洲乃至世界范围内其实都有一个不错的这么一个发展的状况。然后08年的时候，就印度已经有很高的观影频次了。那么发展到现在，就是宝莱坞的发展，您觉得有没有碰到某些瓶颈呢？然后另外，我们知道米叔一直是一个对行业和对国家就是都很热心、很愿意投入力量的这么一个人，所以说您希望以自己的力量去推动哪些问题的解决呢？然后最后祝您的新片在中国也是票房大卖，文体两开花。
We started with the question, and then we go to the point where these guys laughed. Now, see, he was asking, do you think that Bollywood has hit a bottleneck period?
Sorry,
Bollywood has hit a bottleneck period. And what are the problems that you think you could fix through your own efforts? And in the end, he wishes that your latest release film in Chinese market would be a huge success.
Oh, thank you.
At which point he actually recited a poem in Chinese.
What is the point?
It was mainly about best wishes to, so on box office.
Thank you.
So probably he's quite a literate guy.
Okay.
Poetry.
Okay. Well, no, I don't think Indian films have hit a bottleneck. I don't think so. In fact, I feel quite the opposite. I feel that in Indian cinema, today there are a lot of young voices of different writers and filmmakers coming up with, unusual stories and unusual films being made nowadays. And they're also getting a wider acceptance. So I think that it's a period of Indian cinema which is on the rise, on the growth, for a variety of kinds of stories and concepts. That's what I feel. Maybe all of them don't reach over here, to India, to China, so you might not get to know about it. But I think there is a lot of, positive growth happening in Indian cinema. What I feel we need to improve is really the infrastructure for Indian cinema. The bulk of India loves watching movies, but we have so few cinema halls in India. China has 60,000 screens. India has 8,000. Yeah. So we have very few screens, and what we need to do is we need to really build the number of screens, because we also have a huge population and it's a large country. So there are many areas where we don't have exhibition. So I think that is one of the things that we need to really work on and build on. So the bulk of India actually watches all these movies because everyone watches the movies. They don't watch it in the cinema hall because there are not enough cinema halls. So they watch it on television when it comes on television. So in their homes, they watch it in their homes. So the bulk of India watches these films at home. But if we have cinema halls across the country, and especially cinema halls which cater to an income group which is of a lower income group, catering to an audience of lower income group, then I think that there is a huge audience out there in India. which will enjoy watching films on the large screen at an economical rate. And I think that's something that we should be working on really. So that's the bottleneck, I think, for me. It's the exhibition.
他认为，其实宝莱坞整个的总体的宝莱坞这个发展，它并没有遇到什么所谓的瓶颈期。他认为现在其实是这个电影行业发展的一个大好时机，观众也会接受更多的题材、更多新鲜的那个故事的这个制作。但是他觉得，如果一定要说遇到了某一个瓶颈期，他认为其实是跟基础建设方面相关的，就是说，印度真的是有电影院太少了。他认为，比如说中国的那个说是他举了一个数字，中国的有的这个电影院的数量可能是印度的差不多5到6倍之多。但是印度是那么大的一个国家，有那么多的人口，而且印度人非常喜欢看电影，所以他认为，当然现在很多印度人也是喜欢看电影，但是呢，他们是通常会有的时候会等到电影在电视上放了以后，那么在电视上再看。但他觉得，如果你要问瓶颈的话，他认为这可能是一个瓶颈，就是印度需要更多的电影院，尤其是那些能够让低收入的人群也能够看得起那种经济型的这样的一种电影院，这也是他自己的一个愿望。Now let's go to the next one。接下来这个，你可以鼓掌鼓一下。They like to answer that one. Now the next one is 饮水，饮水，在吗？没在是吗？没在呢，我们就跳到后面一个。可以吗？跳到后面一个啊，我看一下，我们这里，李昌，在吗？好，来，李昌这位，
嗨，阿米尔，嗨，你好，主持人，谢谢主持人给我这个机会。
也谢谢饮水给了你这个机会。
我之前就有预感，大家的问题都会偏比较严肃而且沉重，所以我想给大家带来一点轻松的话题，让我们对印度和阿米尔汗有更多的一点了解。So my question is, what is your favorite Indian food? Can you tell us something about it? Thank you.
You know, that is the most difficult question you asked. It's not an easy question. Because India is actually a collection of different states. And each state has their own language, their own customs, their own history, their own culture, their own food, their own clothes. So when you say, what is your favorite Indian food? I don't know what to answer because there are so many different kinds of styles of cooking. There is Gujarati, there is UP style, there is Kashmiri, there is Maharashtrian style, Bengali from the south. Each state is totally different and each state has got very good food. So it's a very difficult question to answer.
If you have to pick one.
Oh man. You know, I have only one answer for that. The best Indian food is my mother's food.
India 印度这个国家有那么多的州，每个州都有自己的食物，有自己的文化，有自己的服饰，自己的语言。想了半天说标准答案，我最喜欢的是妈妈的饭。Can you cook, by the way?
Very badly. Very badly.
不是，他也不是一个好厨师，所以我们就不在那个吃的这个问题上继续下去了。刚才你还说问一个轻松点的问题，他说这是他今天回答的最难的一个问题了。好 ，OK, let's go to.
But my mom is a very good cook, and I want to learn from cooking from her.
You didn't?
No, not yet, but I want to start learning.
You think you have the talent for that?
No, I don't have the talent for that. But I think I'm really keen to learn her cooking, so that I can teach it to my children. And also I get to spend a lot of time with her.
他说那个他是很他不会做饭，他妈妈做的特别好，他是有计划要跟他妈妈去学做饭，因为还能教自己的孩子做，而且还可以跟妈妈一起度过很好的一个时光在一起。Okay, maybe next time you come to China, bring some of your own cookings.
Yeah, no, I'll bring my mother's food.
我说下次来中国，你做的菜带给我们分享一点。他说我还是带我妈妈做的过来的，比较安全一点。Okay, let's move on to the next one.
Yeah.
诸葛热见，在吗？好，来，请那个工作人员给您第一个麦。都是好像以男孩为主哈。
你好，
你好。
您在摔跤吧爸爸中受了摔跤，
然后在《神秘巨星》里写了电音舞曲，所以想问一个比较私人的问题：你喜欢哪些运动和音乐呢？
So you wrestled in Dangle. You also wrote songs in Secret Superstar. So in real life, what is your favorite sport and music type?
Oh.
Also hard.
So in real life, my favorite sport, you know, I don't have any one favorite sport because I love sports, and there are 2 or 3 sports which I really love a lot. One of them is badminton, the other is table tennis, the other is tennis. A lot of racket games. I like soccer, and one of my favorite games is cricket, which we play in India. Then another game that I love very much is chess. I love playing chess. It's one of my favorite games. Another huge favorite for me is a game called Settlers of Catan. It's a board game. I don't know whether you know of that game. Settlers of Catan, anybody?
How do you play it?
It's a strategy game. It's called Settlers of Catan.
You played it with someone?
You play with 3 other people, so 4 people can play it. You can even play with 6 people. That's one of my favorite games. It's a strategy game. Yeah. And there's a new game that I've just learned. It's called pickleball. Has anyone played pickleball? No? It's a new game. It's a mixture between badminton, tennis, and table tennis. Yeah, I've just learned it. So I love racket games. And so
music.
Music, yeah. Well, my favorite music is film music, film songs from Indian films, from Hindi films, from the 50s and 60s. The period of the 50s and 60s had really beautiful music in Indian cinema. The lyrics, the poetry, the music is really fantastic, and that's my favorite music of that era, 50s and 60s, the old Hindi film songs. And from Western groups, some of my favorite groups, I love Pink Floyd, I love Jethro Tull, I like Fleetwood Mac, Beatles, Elvis Presley.
Very different types.
Yeah, very different types. I like jazz. I like to listen to jazz as well. Yeah.
Let me translate this part first, and then you can think about it if there's anything you want to add on top of that. 他刚才问的是米叔喜欢什么体育运动和音乐，他说了好多好多，他真的兴趣爱好特别广泛，什么板球、羽毛球、乒乓、网球、足球，还有那个下棋，还有一种他管它叫战略游戏，就是4个人、6个人一起玩的那种游戏。这兴趣爱好非常广泛，他哪有时间玩这么多游戏？然后呢，说音乐，说他最喜欢的是电影音乐，尤其是印度50年代、60年代的那些电影里的经典的那些音乐插曲和歌曲。但是同时他听很多很多不同的乐队，他基本上刚才说了，西方那么多年流行以来的，从 Beatles 一直到爵士乐等等，他其实都有涉猎，兴趣爱好非常广泛。You actually find the time to play all those games and listen to all this music.
Yeah, I listen to music. My favorite, as I said, is Hindi film music from the 50s and 60s, which I listen to quite often. And I play table tennis quite often, actually. Tennis and badminton a little less regularly. Yeah, but I play all of these games, even now, yeah.
真的是很经常有时间的，基本上最常听的还是印度电影的插曲啊，50年代、60年代，那是打那个网球啊、羽毛球，还是经常都会去打的。Okay, let's move on to, I think that's on my cue card, that's the last questioning we take from the soft-sounded questions from the audience now. We're going to give you more questions now, but let's go to Will Lian. 这谁 ？Will Lian。哎，好。
主持人好，秘书好。
Hello。
是这样，我第一次看您的电影是在我大学的时候，看那个《三个傻瓜》，然后当时三傻大闹宝莱坞。是这样的，就是当时我就发现您会在你的电影中会加入到一些印度的社会问题，所以我最想问的一个问题就是什么原因促使您关注印度的社会问题，然后并且把这些融入到你的电影里面？谢谢。
谢谢. So the first movie of yours that he watched was Three Idiots back when he was in college, and it got to his attention that you tend to talk about very social issues in your movies. So what drives you to take up this course?
Well, the fact is that I don't consciously look for social themes in my movies. I've never done that. I've never consciously picked or searched for stories with social messages. I've never done that. It's somehow happened organically. And I guess it's because of the kind of person I am, so I get attracted to a certain kind of story, a certain kind of script. My main concern when I'm selecting a film is actually not whether it has any social message or not. That's not what I'm looking at. I believe that my fundamental responsibility, my main responsibility to an audience is to entertain them. When a person buys a ticket and comes to a cinema hall, he or she has come there to be entertained. If they wanted a lesson in sociology, they would have gone to a college. So the fact that they've come to a cinema hall means that you've come to have a good time. And I'm very aware of that is my basic and fundamental responsibility, is to entertain. So when I'm listening to a script, or when I'm reading a script to select which movie to do, at that time, I'm like the audience, experiencing a film for the first time. And if the film touches me, if it makes me laugh, it makes me cry, it engages me, or excites me, or entertains me, and it absorbs me completely, then I love it. And when I love it, I want to do it. And at that time, I'm not thinking, does it have a social message or not? I'm not even thinking of that. So all of these films that you mentioned, which are actually very strong social themes, the reason I did these films was not because there was a social theme. That was the added advantage. The reason I did these films is because the stories were so well told that they spoke to me. The scripts were so well written. And the fact that they were about something socially relevant and important to all of us was an added advantage, if you know what I mean. So if a film comes to me about dyslexia or learning disability, but the script is not something which is well written, then I won't do the film. For me, as a film person, as a creative person, it is the creative material that has to excite me to then become a part of it. However, it is my good fortune that I've had so many amazing scripts come to me, which actually all have, many of them have got strong social themes in it, and that makes me happy that I'm able to combine the two.
他说其实他从来都不是有意识的要去找一些社会问题去反映。对他来说，他觉得做电影最重要的还是剧本的故事。对他来说，反映社会问题不是他做电影的职责所在，他的职责所在是娱乐大众。因为如果你想要了解社会学，你可以去大学里面听课，但是当你买了票走进电影院，他相信观众是希望能够度过一段愉快的时光，被娱乐的时光，所以娱乐大众是他的首要的这样的一个目的。那么，如果说反映那些社会问题，对他来说是他在这个制作过程当中一个附加的一个价值，附加进去的。当然，他也很高兴这些附加的价值能够给社会带来一些变化。然后他说，他非常在意的是这个故事是否能够吸引他。如果有人跟他来说啊，我们今天要拍一个电影，要反映孩子学习障碍。但是如果没有一个好的故事，他是不会做。所以最终吸引他的，首先还是这个故事的本身。他也非常幸运，现在会有很多很多好的剧本、好的故事，不停的像雪片一样的向他飞来，砸到他身上。所以他很高兴，将来也是会有机会把更多的好的故事这样带给大家。OK。And on my cue card, we're going to move on to part 3 now.
Okay.
We'll be taking some questions from the audience who have been following this event because we have live streaming from the very beginning. Okay. So I have some of them here with me, and then we're going to take a few questions from the audience. All right. 我们是先从这个网上看直播的观众当中有一些选择的问题，刚才工作人员挑了几个给到我手里了啊。有一位叫认真脸 this audience name is called Serious Face.
Serious Face.
So maybe that is a very serious question we're getting.
Okay.
Get ready. 他说，请问米叔如何保持年轻的容颜 ？How do you make sure that you stay young, looking and fit?
Oh. You know, I think there are a lot of things for which I need to thank my mother. And this is one of them. Because she looks very beautiful and young. And I think I've got my looks from my mother. So I guess I'll have to thank her. I don't know. I don't do anything to look young. I don't do anything to stay young.
Nothing you put on your face every night?
No, I don't. Actually, my wife makes fun of me because, you know, most actors, they look after their hair and they look after their skin and they put cream at night and they put moisturizer and all of that. And they use conditioner in their hair.
You don't do that?
Nothing.
So you wash your face and you go straight to bed?
I don't even wash my face.
Maybe that's the secret.
Maybe that's the secret. So you know, for the longest time, I was not using shampoo. I was using soap. And then somebody told me that, no, you cannot use soap. It's very harsh. You will spoil your hair and you cannot use soap. You have to use shampoo. So I said, okay. So I started using shampoo. So I'm totally clueless about you know, products which are meant to make you look better, and I don't have the patience for that, actually, to be quite honest. So my wife Kiran often tells me that you're an actor, you need to look after your skin, and you know, and she buys me some things every now and then, but they always lie unopened because I don't use them.
刚才说米叔怎么样保持容颜？他说，首先还是感谢他的妈妈，他的妈妈看起来本身就很年轻，是非常的美丽，这个强大的基因。然后他自己不做任何的护肤和保养，他知道很多演员又用什么护发素，又做什么护肤的，他自己什么都不弄。我说，那你就洗完脸就睡觉吗？他说，我可能有时候都不洗脸，大概不洗脸就是秘诀所在了啊，有可能啊。然后他说，他妻子有的时候会跟他说，嘿，你是个演员明星啊，你一定要照顾一下你的这个脸皮嘛。还给他买了一些什么护肤产品，他从来都不用。然后有很长一段时间，他用肥皂洗头发。后来有人跟他说：“啊，不行，那个头发洗完了太干了，你头发要毁了。”他才开始用香波。所以他对这种护肤护发这种事情没有什么耐心，他也从来没有用。所以我们只能说，上天赐给了米叔这样的容颜，就是没有办法。So this is God given.
So like right now, my lips have chapped because it's very cold over here. And every time my wife reminds me, you should put something on your lips. But I still don't remember, so I have not used it yet.
I have chapsticks in the backstage.
Yes,
Want some?
okay, I will use it afterwards.
他说，比如说现在他的嘴唇就很干，因为北京很干燥。
So sorry, just.
Yeah, 就是，然后他说他老婆跟他说，哎，你要拿润唇膏啊，他从来都不记得。我说我后台我有，待会儿我借他用一下，干嘛？
So regarding this age question, you know, the funny thing is that in my head I'm still 18 years old, and I feel that in my head I've not gone beyond that age. I still think I'm 18, and sometimes it gets me into trouble because sometimes I meet somebody who is, you know, looking like in India with an elder person we call him uncle or auntie. Yeah. So I meet somebody and I say, hello uncle, and actually he's my age, but he looks like an uncle to me. So, you know, I still think I'm 18 and he's the uncle. I forget that I'm actually his age or her age.
So in your mind, you're still a little fresh meat.
Yeah. In my mind, I'm still there.
李叔说，在他的心里，他自己永远都是18岁。Actually, me too. I feel like 18 all the time. Just kidding. 然后他说，这个有的时候在印度，他会跟人家打招呼，管人家叫叔叔阿姨，但实际上人家可能跟他年纪都差不多了。但是呢，所以我说，那你内心是不是觉得自己还是小鲜肉一枚？他说，没错。Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay. Next one， 接下来呢是我们的网友曼小玉问的一个问题，说很多中国的网友会把你跟中国的成龙相提并较，听说你也是成龙的影迷，你是怎么评价成龙或者他的作品了 ？Okay。This says, many audience here in China would compare you with China's Jackie Chan. And we heard that you're also a fan of Jackie Chan. So what do you have to say about his works?
Well, I'm a huge fan of Jackie Chan's films. And I remember the first film I saw of his I think I was 18 years old, if I remember correctly, and there was a film that released in India called Police Story 2. And I'd never seen a film of his before this. And I went into the theater and I saw the film. And I saw the film and it just blew my mind. Because he was doing the most unbelievable stunts in the film. And it was such a exciting and funny film. And what struck me the most was that not only is he amazing in his action and his stunts, but he's really funny as well, and he's so full of humor, and his films are so funny and they make you laugh. And I was really amazed to watch him and his film. And I remember coming out of the cinema hall and going back to the box office window and buying a ticket for the next show and going back in to watch the film. Yeah, again, because I was so amazed to watch his films. I think he's an amazing personality. He's got this remarkable combination of agility and calisthenics and control over his body, and along with that, as an actor, he's got amazing sense of timing as a comic. So I think he's someone who I really look up to, and I'm a big fan of his work.
他说他第一次看成龙大哥的电影是看到那个警察故事，然后当时他就惊呆了，因为成龙大哥的那些动作啊，就是让他整个惊呆了。然后除此以外，那个电影非常的有意思，因为那是个喜剧片嘛。然后他觉得成龙是一个令人惊叹的这样的一个演员，他不仅对于自己的身体有着极强的控制力，能够做到不可思议的一些特效的动作。除此以外，他是一个非常棒的喜剧演员，所以他是成龙很大的一个粉丝，也是很敬仰成龙的。Okay, let's move on to the next one. 接下来这个提问的叫初一，你好像每天都在过年哈，这个每天都在初一啊。他说中国其实有很多好演员没有戏拍，你会有这样的焦虑或者是恐惧吗 ？Okay, he's actually 怎么？说什么？没关系，告诉我。他是导演，我说他自己就是导演。Okay, I'm going to tell you the story. Okay, so the question is that in China there are many great actors and actresses, but no one actually would give them jobs sometimes because the market competition is so fierce. And for some reason, some good actors, they just have to stay at home and wait for good scripts and directors to call on their doors. Would you have this kind of concern or fear? And as I was raising the question, these guys were saying, hey, Amir is a director himself, so he would never be jobless as an actor. Is that right?
Well, I think being an actor who's talented, and you still wait for work to come your way is something that can be quite heartbreaking. And I can understand the feeling of an actor or an actress who is very talented but is not getting work and is looking for work. So that can be really heartbreaking, and all I can say is that you should not lose hope and not lose faith. But sometimes, life is not fair with you. Sometimes things don't go your way. And sometimes with the best of your efforts and with the best of your talent, sometimes you don't get the opportunities. That's the hard truth of life. And it's very difficult to predict what can happen when. In fact, this is one of the reasons why my parents didn't want me to become an actor. They wanted me to be an engineer, doctor, just like in Three Idiots. But this was the reason, because they wanted to protect me from a situation like this. So my heart goes out to actors, like that. But if it ever happens to me, I would be heartbroken as well. I don't know. Like he said, I could direct my own film in which I could act. But you know what I think? I think that when audiences, when you're no longer relevant to an audience as an actor, now these are young actors who you're speaking about who are looking for work at home. But someone like myself who's been through 30 years of acting, when I stop being relevant to audiences and I'm no longer communicating with them, I'm unable to communicate with them despite my best efforts, then it's time for me to stop acting. And I should be the first person, hopefully, to realize that I'm no longer relevant to an audience. There's a beautiful line, I think, I think it was it Steffi Graf who said that, or Martina Navratilova, both tennis players. I forget who said that. I think one day, so they asked her, why did you retire so early from tennis? And she said that there was a day when I was playing a tournament, and then during the match, I heard the aeroplane flying in the sky, and that's when I knew I had to stop playing. Because until then, there were many aeroplanes which flew over when she was playing a match, but she never noticed them. But the fact that she noticed a plane flying overhead made her realize that it's time to stop playing the game because her mind is going somewhere else. So I think for all of us, experienced actors who've been acting for many years, it's important to know it's important to stay relevant to an audience. And then when you stop being relevant to an audience, it's time to move on.
他说这个问题其实很有意思，他完全可以体会到，就是有些演员没有工作，等着好的剧本、好的导演来找的那种焦虑、那种痛苦。然后他自己人生在最刚开始的时候，也是就是他的工作刚开始也是有过一段这样的一段经历。这也就是为什么当初他的父母其实是反对他做这个行业的，因为他父母想让他当个医生啊，当个工程师，就是不想让他经历这种痛苦。那他说，其实一个演员对他来说，首先他会劝那些正在等工作的好演员不要失去信心，不要失去信仰。但是对于他来说，一个演员不管你是年纪多大，不管你是有经验还是没有经验的，有一天当你和市场和观众之间的联系已经断掉的时候，当你没有办法再跟观众去很好的沟通的或者情感交流的时候，可能就是他应该停止的脚步了。他说如果有他的自己的人生当中这一天到来的时候，他希望他自己是第一个能够知道的。所以他是想到了他，因为他喜欢打网球嘛，所以他就关注那个网球一些球星的事情。他说他认识了一个球星，就是曾经说过这样的一句话，一位女的网球运动员说，你们都问我为什么那么早退休，我告诉你们为什么，就是我在打锦标赛的时候听见空中有一辆飞机飞过。他说那个时候我就知道，因为以前有无数的飞机飞过，我从来没有注意，但是我听到了它，说明我已经开始走神了，所以我就要走了。所以对于一个演员来说，最重要的是时刻和观众保持情感上的共鸣和连接。
But once again, my heart goes out to those actors who are young and starting out, and good actors, but they don't get work. My heart goes out to them.
当然还是要说非常同情那一些在家里等着剧本等着导演来敲门的好演员，他非常能够体谅他们。OK， 好，这是刚才工作人员给我的几个从网上的。They're clapping their hands because now it's time for them. 所以接下来的时间就是给我们现场观众的提问了。我们先照顾一下那边的观众，因为我刚才一直很忽略他们。那边后面有一个戴眼镜的男生，好了，先从您开始。我们工作人员先给他一个麦。So we're going to tend to the audience from that side because we haven't really been. I haven't been turning around and to take care of them. 好 ，We start with that young man.
主持人你好，米叔你好。
你好。
我注意到您之前很少有拍关于爱情的电影，但人们总是说爱情是人类永恒的主题。所以我想知道您之后有没有什么打算想拍一些以爱情为主题的电影？然后如果有的话，大概希望这是一个什么样的故事
？Well, he thinks, 谢谢你哈。Well, he thinks that you haven't done a romance story for a long time, and when is your plan for that? And what kind of love story would you be likely to work on?
Yeah, that's true. I think he's right. I've not done a romantic film for quite a while, and I've also been thinking of that. That I should do a nice love story soon, a romantic film. But you can't plan these things. They have to happen organically, and the right story has to come. But he's absolutely right. I would love to do a romantic film soon.
他说真的，他说他自己也在想这个问题，的确是好久好久都没有拍爱情故事的电影了。然后他也很希望有个好故事，但这东西他说没法计划，它就得是自然而然的发生，可能正好有一个好故事之类的，然后打到他可能就可以有这样的。他是有计划，当然会让我们知道。Okay, let's move on to the next one. 哎呀，这个我的决定权真好的。我们给前排这一位提一个问题吧。他手里还拿着一个，应该是一个礼物。
你好，秘书，我是代表我女儿来参加这个活动。
你女儿多大？
我女儿今年15岁。那个她去年的时候因为空气过敏，一度不愿意去上学。我买了好多好吃的，她也不去。后来看了你的那个神秘巨星，她去了学校。所以说，我要以这个父亲的身份和你的这个粉丝的身份来感谢你。
我跟他说一下，你刚说女儿因为什么没去学校？
她因为空气过敏，对雾霾过敏啊。我个人呢，我是一个新风设备的设计师，我也成立了一个关注女孩健康的一个公益组织。今天呢，我闺女托我带了给秘书带了一个礼物。
在家写作业呢是吗？
她今天来不了，她还是过敏有点这个。
所以这是
带了一个中国结，带了一个中国结。
He has a gift for you. That's actually from his
这个颜色是中国红和美女主持人的这个颜色是一样的。她呢是应该你穿宽松衣服的时候，她是在前面，她在后面，她在后面。代表的是这个代表的是圆满，圆满。
So it's round, so it's a circle, so it means.
后面代表的是吉祥。
Okay.
吉祥。
And what hangs on the back means happiness.
我女儿托我带了这个礼物，然后她有一个小小的请求，让我和她 take a picture.
Can we take a picture with you for his daughter? 那我们这样子，你自己手机有那边有人帮你拍吗？
他们
好，那就这样的。但是这个我们就是第一例啊，因为他有女儿，这个不能每个人都上来，然后我们就要立刻要停止这活动，所以大家稍微忍耐一下。哎，这个人太幸运了。来，幸运的观众，大家鼓一下掌，谢谢。来麦还给我，谢谢。OK, now the story is his daughter. Okay.
No, this mic is for the audience.
Oh, this for the okay. Sorry. 这是观众的麦，不好意思。Now let me tell you about Samir. The story that his daughter was afraid of going to school for a while because of the air pollution, and she was allergic to the air outside home. But she watched Secret Superstar, and she overcame her fears, and she went to school, which is why he's here on behalf of his daughter to give you a gift.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to hear that.
So he really doesn't have a question for you, but he actually told you a lovely story.
Please thank your daughter for this.
他非常非常高兴，感谢。
And please give her my best wishes.
也祝你女儿一切都好。Okay, he does have a question. 来，要不您告诉我。He was too excited.
Yeah.
没事。
You can ask on the mic.
我今天下午刚和北京妇联的领导，我们在讨论一个关爱女孩健康的这么一个组织。我知道这个空气污染对女孩，特别是青春期的女孩的影响特别大，而我了解到的印度的空气也是不太好啊。我们成立的这么一个公益组织呢，是关爱女孩的呼吸健康的。我不知道秘书愿意不愿意和我们一起来推动这件事，中印之间的这种关爱女孩健康的一个组织。
Okay, he's involved in a non-profit organization, which is for the good of society, sort of like a charity organization that is to help to pay attention to the health of teenage girls in polluted air, and then to take care of the problems that the air pollution cause on these young children's health. And he's actually saying that he thinks maybe they could invite you at some point to join them in an effort like this.
Sure.
Yeah. 他就是对有机会的话，他一定是会愿意加入一个非常有意义的这样的一个项目和组织。好 ，OK， 我们再下一个问题 ，Let's go to the next one。你的老粉丝来一个吧，好吧 ？OK，that's your big fan for years. Okay, a lady first. Next we go to you. Okay.
Namaskar.
Namaste.
I want to ask something like, In China, we think your movie has some power, like educational power. So as a student, I watched the movie first week at Little Stars on the Earth, and then we eat it.
Yeah.
So I get a lot of inspiration from the movies. And a lot of students in China, they actually watch your movies and get inspired. So we even call your movie has the power of changing your country, not just India, our country, China too. And we students have a lot of hope for you. And I really wish that you could come to China more and your movie could release in China immediately. You want to do it globally. And maybe we will just buy a lot of tickets for you and contribute to your box office. And we'll be very expected it. Yeah. We want some quality movies like yours.
Right.
And
right.
I don't know how do you define your power of you could have actually cured India. We believe that your movie has the power to cure India. And you are the hero of India. How do you think about it?
Well, thank you so much for your kind words. You're too generous in your praise for me. The fact is that, like many people around the world, and like many people in China as well, I'm just someone who's trying to be useful to other people, trying my best to contribute as best as I can. And it's a process. I think for all of us, it's a process, and it's a continuous process where we keep working and trying to improve ourselves and to improve the lives of others who are less privileged. It's a continuous process of doing that. So I'm just trying my best, and thank you for your kind words. Thank you so much.
Okay, ask one more question again.
You want to translate that first?
Yeah, 我先跟大家翻译一下，就大概就是刚刚这个姑娘是非常激动，说米叔的那个电影，大概总结一下，改变了很多人对印度的看法，改变了对于现实的社会的一些问题起到了推动作用，同时也改变了中国的很多年轻人的这个想法或者是这个社会的这个进程。然后非常高兴说以后米叔有机会能够把他的电影第一时间在中国发售，我们都会是你的影迷，会买票去看。然后米叔说的是，他觉得如果说他的电影这个作品能够对社会的那个进程有一定的推动作用或者有一定的教育意义的话，他觉得是人生的莫大的荣幸。对于他来说，专注的做他所做的事情，热爱的这个电影事业是最重要的。你还有一个你这样一个短问题，因为我们时间不多啊，要留给很多人。
Will you be is it possible that more Indian programs or like Indian TV episodes come to China, or maybe will you play the role for this? Because in China we watch lots of Indian TV series and movies like yours, so is it possible? And I want to say something from behalf of a Chinese audience. मैं तुमसे प्यार करती हूँ.
Oh, thank you.
मैं तुमसे प्यार करता हूँ. What does it mean?
It means I love you.
你看用印度语学会说我爱你了。
Well, you mean I should bring my show Truth Alone Prevails? I think it's already available in China on some.
他的电视节目说的是希望他把电视节目能够带到中国来，但米叔说在网上其实能看到。Okay, let's go to the gentleman in the second row.
Hi, Amit. I'm Dr. Ali from Pakistan. And first I want to dedicate two lines in Urdu. मुद्दत के बाद उसने सरे अंजुमन कतील देखा निगाहे आम से और खास कर दिया.
And can you do the interpretation?
Well, it's a poem in Urdu which basically means, what's the first line again?
मुद्दत के बाद उसने सरे अंजुमन कतील.
So after very long, he has given me his presence, and something very ordinary has become very special. So, kind of means that, yeah.
And now my question is that when you are coming to Pakistan, because we are waiting for you.
Well, I would love to come at some point. You know, I have relatives in Karachi. From my mother's side who had gone to Pakistan during partition. So I have cousins in Pakistan as well. I've been to Pakistan a couple of times. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
这是巴基斯坦的朋友啊，说希望那个米叔以后有机会能够把他的作品带到巴基斯坦去。米叔说没有问题，说他们自己家里其实也是有跟巴基斯坦有渊源，将来会有这样的机会。那边穿黄衣服的那个女孩吧，你们几个是一伙的吗？穿一样的衣服是一伙的，同一个人代表提问啊。好， See, they have a uniform.
Yes, yes.
既然说到这了，我们就自我介绍一下，我们是阿米尔汗中国粉丝团的成员。Hi, I'm Karen, and my question is, besides the member JJ, you also have a TV show called Tufan Alaya, and this is a program of an NGO project from Bani Foundation. And my question is, I've learned that this project has just started a couple of weeks ago, about 2000 for Bani Foundation 2019. And my question is there any possibility we China fans to support that project, such as do Ramadan? Or some, yes, since I'm a freelancer now, so I would want to know if is there any chance to do that? 然后为了节省时间，我为大家翻译一下，因为米叔之前有一个电视节目叫《真相访谈》，大家都非常了解。但是就是米叔现在就之前一段时间，就是在今年的4到5月份，他还有另外一个电视节目叫做《风暴来临》。这个主题是关于为那个马哈拉施特拉邦的一个干旱的问题进行一系列的解决，帮助他们不是光给钱他们，而是教会他们如何去储备水和雨水的一个收集，然后来解决那个干旱的一个问题。然后这个资源呢也在 B 站上面有，大家请关注阿米尔看下划线 CHN 对大家进行了解。所以我的问题是我们中国粉丝团也很希望加入到这样一个公益的行列里面，看看明年这个项目，因为这个项目经理就是明年项目
中国粉丝能做什么是吧？
比如说是做什么就是那个志愿者的一个对。
She's talking about an organization that my wife and I have started called Bani Foundation. Bani means water, and we live in a state called Maharashtra. Maharashtra is a very large state. It's bigger than Germany. It's bigger than a lot of countries in Europe. And there are large parts of Maharashtra which receive very little rainfall. And the villagers there and the farmers there are dependent on the rainfall for their agriculture. So for the last 4 years, my wife and I have started this organization called Bani Foundation. And the purpose of this is to help the villagers and farmers and teach them watershed management so that they can look after themselves and solve their water problem. So we've been working for 4 years with a lot of success. And Shramdan is actually voluntary labor. When you donate your time and you work with the villagers to help them to build the structures for watershed management. So a lot of us go to the villages. My wife and I spent 2 months of April and May traveling from village to village, working with the villagers to help them. But on a large scale, we right now are working in roughly 25% of the state. So that's a pretty large area that we've covered in the 4 years. And so to answer your question, if you want to be a part of that, you're most welcome. I think the people of Maharashtra will be very happy and very excited to know that there are, friends in me. Then you can come with us to the villages and work with the villagers to help them build the structures. If you want to give them financial assistance, you can do that as well. So, I'm very touched to know that you would like to help the villages in Maharashtra, and I'm sure they would be very happy to know this. Thank you.
刚才你说的又是简单的把这个项目介绍了一下，其实你刚才也介绍了一下，他说4年前他跟他的妻子一起创办的，然后他跟他的妻子呢也是经常到这个省会去跟当地的村民一起工作，一起去具体的做一些事情来帮助解决水资源的问题。目前他们的工作已经把这个省的1/4的这个村庄大概都已经走遍了。那么回答你的问题，说中国的粉丝如果有这样的意愿的话，有很多种途径。如果你在4到5月份来的话，可以跟他们一起到村庄里去跟村民一起工作。还有的或者说如果说有一些经济上的资助，当然也是非常受欢迎的。印度的村民会很高兴有中国的好朋友，尤其是美女好朋友，能够到那边去帮助他们一起哈。好，谢谢你哦，谢谢 ，Thank you。
She asked that girl. She's been putting her hand up for very long.
Which one?
In the front row. Next,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. 这位，哎，这是米叔钦点的你，是 OK。
Thank you, Minha. I really want to take this chance to thank you because first I have to say I really bought tickets for the Chinese film, the Indian films he had in Chinese cinemas. That's for one point. And the other one is I'm so honored that I also bought tickets in India cinema for Three Idiots.
Oh.
Yes, so I have to say that. And back to 2010, I had a chance to visit India, and the most interesting thing is I just bumped into the cinema hall and found that, okay, there is one called Three Idiots. I think the name's very interesting that I entered the cinema hall. So I think you are a very good storyteller because even though I don't know the language, but I can see the whole is laugh, and I also enjoyed 3 hours and 4 hours. So that is the first time I know there is a film that could last for so long, but I don't find it very boring.
Yeah.
So after that, I know the storytelling is so powerful, and I just follow your trace for your production, and also I started to write my own story, so I'm so honored and interested in your love to the storytelling. So I also brought my little stories book to you. Maybe you could find it interesting.
Yes.
For the question itself, I would like to say, do you find your passion or the core message if you look back to your career for all this 30 years, except for your love to storytelling, what is the main purpose of your work? Like myself, I think is to tier all the text to different people. Like, okay, you're Indian, yeah, you're Chinese, you're religious, you're non-religious. So I really want to tear down all those texts through my stories. So I'm curious, what about yours if you have one? Thank you.
你先把你的这个故事书，你是要给到他吗？你可以先给我帮你交给他，可以，就是台上就不要来了，因为每个人都上来真的是不行。我可以现在帮你交给他，这个好吗？好 ，OK， now this is her storybook， and 他刚才问的这个问题是说，前面呢是说他自己写了一个故事啊，想让米叔看一下，然后呢说了他自己看米叔的电影的经历，在印度都看了那个三傻的那个电影，说听不懂印度语，但是看到观众的反响非常非常的好。然后他的问题是说是他想问米叔，对于你来说做电影，你想要成就的是一个什么样的一个愿望，或者说是
Well, you know, I've never thought about it. I've never thought whether there is any core message that I'm actually wanting to give across my films. And if I try and think about it, I think probably I would like to spread joy and happiness and love, and give hope, and hopefully inspire people through all my work. Yeah, I guess that would be the core thing.
他说他其实最想的很简单，就是希望给人带来快乐、希望和爱，这是他最想做的这样的一件事情。Okay, we have the time to take maybe the last 2 questions. You want to make your pick? Okay, which one? This girl?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I create a Chinese poetry and contains 7 characters each sentence, and it combines 7 sentences. And first, I want to read it in Chinese. 恶风浊浪虽有时，暗渺放眸总清晰。劝君莫为浪比愁，只因博浪无愧心。一生好篇君须记，最是潇洒且前行。仅以此诗表我心。Then I want to try to translate into English.
我们给他鼓个掌，鼓励一下。
Well, according to this theme, swimming against the tides. The surroundings is strong gale and violent waves comes from times to times, and the destination shore seems far, far away. But if you try hard to see, you will see clearly, and it's always there in your mind. And then, don't worry about the deep ocean and high lakes, because after fighting with the tides, you have no regrets. Yes. You are worthy of everything. sacrifices you made for the audience and for your heart.
Right.
You should remember the most charming moments that you have is keep going forward with no fears.
Thank you. Has she written that for me?
There are thousands of words that I want to say to you, and my love and adoration for you never comes to the end, and the party comes to the end. Thank you. And I want to ask a question. That is, who supports you so much during the hard times? You say just a moment.
Yeah.
Thank you.
OK， 他那个先给他鼓个掌啊，不容易。诗人，我们的女诗人，她为阿米尔汗写了一首诗，所以她自己拿中英文给他念了。念完之后，她的问题是说，是在你最困难的时候，是有谁给了你支持和帮助？
First of all, thank you so much for this lovely poem. I'm really touched. Thank you. Well, whenever I go through a tough time in my life, I think it is my family, my mother, my wife, my kids, my close friends and cousins who are very close to me. They are the people who always stand by me and they support me whenever I'm in any kind of trouble. These are the people. Also my fans, they always stand by me and they support me. So thank you for that. Thank you.
他说最困难的时候是他的家人、他的朋友帮助他，当然最不能忘记的还有所有的粉丝的支持，所以不会忘记大家。Okay, let's take one more question.
Sure.
You want to make your pick?
No, you pick.
Okay. That's really hard. Okay, let's get one from the back. How about the gentleman who's right there in the back? 最后面，对，最后面的一位。Okay, we can hardly see him. There we go.
谢谢知乎给我这个机会。
He thanks Zhihu. He thanks Zhihu for this opportunity.
Okay. Okay. 我是一位科学老师。
He's a science teacher.
Oh, he's a science teacher. Wow. Okay, physics, biology, chemistry. What part of science?
哪个科学是教什么科学的
？Biology, astronomy, all the science.
Wow.
Biology, astronomy.
All the science.
Oh, wow.
各位老师都是全科的老师。
很厉害。你的问题吧。
非常感谢你，因为我在遇到我夫人之前，我并没有看过你的电影，然后她带我看了3遍《三傻》，然后后来我就觉得，这里面的你塑造的角色是一些非常特别的人，然后我会觉得，我夫人之所以看上我，我觉得可能跟这部电影有点关系，所以感谢你关注我。
His wife took him to see Three Idiots 3 times.
Okay.
And he thinks it's because the characters in that movie are so special that his wife fell in love with him because he's a special character, that's what he thinks. So he wants to thank you for that.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that.
谢谢你对中国对教育带来的这些启发，因为作为一个老师而言，我觉得有很多地方我在当学生的时候就体验过，然后在当了老师之后，我也在改变着这一些事情。
你是说你就是你自己在做教育工作的这个时候，是吧？
对，无论我在当学生的时候，我体验过那种就是以前的那种教育，然后我在做了老师之后，我也在改变着一些。
Yeah, so he knows that many of the films focus on the topics of education, and he's also a teacher. So ever since he became a teacher, he's also been looking at some of the problems and also some of the progress that has been made in that field. And 你的问题是？
我的问题其实是替我夫人问的，她是。
He's raising this question on behalf of his wife.
她是 OK, she is your fan. OK, 她的问题是。同样是和孩子相处，你更喜欢亲子关系，还是更喜欢就像是地球上的星星那种师生关系？就是
更喜欢哪一种？
对。
Okay, so the question, I'm just going to translate literally that he thinks which kind of relationship with kids would you prefer? Either it's a father-son, father-daughter, or the relationship that you picture in the movie as stars on the earth, that is really like a teacher or a guide or
your lifetime events with your kid?
I don't think, well, first of all, please say hi to your wife for me and give her my best wishes.
向你妻子问好，祝她一切都好。
谢谢。
I don't think that your relationship with your child needs to be exclusive and be like any one of them. It can actually be inclusive and it can include all of these things. You can be a parent, you can be a guide, you can be all of that. You know, when I was researching the film, Tare Zameen Par, I met a doctor. He was a psychiatrist, and I asked him, I said, what is the most important thing that children need? And he said, children need security, trust and faith. Security, trust and faith. What is the third thing? Security. Sorry.
No problem.
It's been a long time. Security, trust and faith. Okay, I'm forgetting the second one.
Two things that he told you.
No, he told me 4 things, but I'm forgetting one of them. So he said security, trust and faith. Security, trust and faith, dignity, and love. And he said in that order, because some parents give a lot of love to their children, they hug them, they kiss them, they give them a lot of love, but they don't give them security, they don't give them dignity. When the child is naughty, sometimes they shout at him as if he's a worse person. They make the child feel very small. They break the child's self-respect. So you can give the child love, but if you don't give the child self-respect, dignity, trust and faith and security, then that love is of no meaning. So he said love is the least and comes fourth. It's like when you give a person a good meal and then the love is like the dessert. So what is most important for children is security. Never make a child feel insecure. Always make the child realize that no matter what happens, your parents are always with you. That is security. The child should always feel secure. That the world may be against me, but my parents will always be with me. That's number 1. Number 2 is always treat the child with respect and dignity. Even if the child has done something wrong, if you want to correct the child, don't put the child in a courtroom, in a witness box and shout at him like a criminal. Tell the child with dignity and respect that, whatever you feel, but it should be conveyed with dignity and respect. Don't break the dignity of the child. Don't break the self-respect of the child. Don't shout at the child in front of other people. The third thing was trust and faith. Always trust your child. Let the child know that you trust him or her. And always keep the trust with your child. Never break your trust with your child. And when you do these 3 things, and then you give love, then that is the most healthy things that you can give to a child. And that you can give as a parent, that you can give as a teacher, that you can give as an individual towards children. And that is the biggest learning for me, as far as children are concerned. And then I went a step further and I realized that these 4 things are needed, not just by children, but by all of us. All of us need security. We need to feel secure and safe. All of us need respect and dignity. All of us want trust and faith. And all of us want love. And when I realized that, I went back home and I was thinking, in my life there are some relationships of mine which are not very good, where I fought with somebody, where I'm not in a good relationship with a person. And I said, as an experiment, let me give these 4 things to that person with whom I'm fighting. And let me see if it changes. And I started doing that. The person who I was not in a good relationship with, I started giving that person a sense of security. I never told the person, listen, from now on I'm not going to talk to you, I don't want to see your face. No, whatever happens, I'm always there. Security, respect, dignity, trust, and love. And I realized that all my relationships which were bad, they became good. Because these 4 things actually, not just children, but all of us need these 4 things. So if you can give these 4 things to your child, as a teacher or as a parent, you'll be doing the best thing.
那个动情，相信这也是他自己的，可能是他自己在家里跟孩子相处的方式。我简单的翻译一下，他说其实不一定要选择某一种关系，你作为人生的导师也好，作为父母也好，其实很多时候你跟孩子的关系是各种角色的一个综合的一个整体。那么对于他来说，他曾经在拍那个《地球上的星星》的时候，跟一个心理学家聊过，说孩子最需要什么？那个人跟他说，孩子需要安全感，需要信任，需要尊严，也需要爱。那么是这样的一个顺序排下来的，安全感是非常非常重要的。他在感觉到安全的情况下，你同时要给他一定的尊严，比如说孩子犯错了，不要在公开的场合对他喊叫啊之类的，要给他一定尊严感。然后呢，永远都不要打破你跟孩子之间这个信任的纽带，最后才到了这里爱。在这样的前3个都已经达到的情况下，给孩子的爱是给孩子一个真正的能够体会到的爱。但是他后来说，他后来仔细想，作为一个成人，我们何尝不需要这4种东西呢？其实人和人之间最需要的也是这样的四种关系。然后他也说到，他就想到了他自己人生当中可能有一些的人际关系处理的没有那么好，所以他就试图要去改变这样的关系，去跟那一些人去给他们安全感，去告诉他们，当你需要我的时候我会在。然后慢慢的他也看到他自己人生中跟家人跟朋友的一些关系也会有所改善。Okay, that's really all the time we have. Your manager has been winking to me for a long time. I think we need to round things up. 是我们今天已经超时很长时间了，时间真的是到了。米叔今天已经非常累了一天，所以我们的提问到此结束。接下来还有一个小惊喜 ，we have a small thing that we would like to ask you to do. That is to take a selfie with the audience.
Oh yes, I would love that.
Yeah, you have your phone with you?
I do.
Okay.
But before I do that, I just want to say to all of you that each time I meet people from China and I interact with people, it really amazes me and it really touches my heart to feel the kind of warmth and love that you give me is really amazing, and it really always touches my heart. Chinese people are really lovely, they're very polite, they're very warm, and they're very welcoming and inclusive. And I find that an amazing quality in the people of China. So I just want to thank you all for all of you.
再次感谢大家，每次来这边感受到你们的温暖、你们的支持、你们的关爱。It's Christmas, so that photo is going to be a Christmas gift to all of you.
Well, for me too. So a Merry Christmas to all of you and very Happy New Year.
好，接下来呢，米说给大家一个特别的圣诞礼物，就是跟大家一起拍一个自拍。你们不用动，你们坐在座位上，我们照顾到每一个角度的观众，好不好？大家不要乱掉。Okay, let's take care of the audience from that side, and one in the middle, and then one on the right side. So we make sure we get all of them in together. Okay.
So first I'll take with everyone, then I'll come there and take that section, and you are in this section. So we'll take 4.
好，一共有4张照片。好，后面的观众朋友们。OK， OK， 好，大家都准备好了吗？一起来挥手。第一点不要挡到你们。好 ，OK，and we go to this section。好，在这一组啊，跟大家一起自拍，那个大家都先坐着啊，那个不要他们 ，OK。大家对前排坐一下，照顾一下后面的朋友啊 ，OK。对前排的坐下，照顾后面的，要不后面的真的好惨。对，后面的站起来可以啊。对，他说让后面的你们都到两边来啊，不要到太前面，对，往两边来一点。对，不要乱掉，不要乱掉。好，大家往中间凑一下。注意安全，注意安全，千万不要挤啊。耶！好，我们接下来到这边 ，now this section。OK， 大家坐好，要不然这个他的安保人员会很紧张，好吧？我们对，大家不要拥挤，哎，不拥挤，我们有秩序的一起拍一张。All right.
Thank you. You learned how to say goodbye in Chinese?
Yeah, how do you say goodbye?
再见。
再见。